So in the previous lesson, we completed F5, F6 and F7. And in today's lesson, we're going to have a look at completing R1 and R2. I can spot mistakes others have made and explain them to an educated reader. The sequence is as follows: 2, 5, 9 and so on. Justin thinks that the rule is to add 3, so the next number is 12. What mistake has he made? So remember, with reasoning questions, we need to use the CICE procedure. So that stands for correct, incorrect, compare and explain. So the first thing we need to start with is we need to start filling in our correct box. And the way we're going to do this is we need to have a look at our actual sequence. So we've got a sequence that says 2, 5 and 9 and so on. Then we need to find the rule for this actual sequence that we've got. And we can see that the rule is adding 3 for the first one, and for the second one we are adding 4. Once we've done that, we then need to find the next term as we are asked in the question. And to do this, we need to find the rule for that one, which is adding 5. And we can see from here we're adding 3, adding 4, then adding 5. So 9 add 5 would be 14. Once we've taken a note of this, we need to then write in the incorrect box the statement that Justin has made. So Justin thinks that the next number is 12, so we're going to write 2, 5, 9 and 12. Once we've done that, we then need to compare our answer to Justin's answer, and we can see that Justin only considered the gap between the 2 and the 5. So he only looked at the 2 and the 5, he saw that we're adding 3 and not considered the other numbers in the sequence. So therefore, the correct answer is 14. As we can see, we got the answer 14. Here's a question for you to try. Pause the video here. Here's the solutions. Make sure that you self-assess your work. As you can see, we are adding 3. They thought that we are doubling. To compare, you add 3 each time, not double. She only looked at the first 2 terms, and therefore the correct answer is 12. So let's have a look at a different type of question. The sequence is as follows: 10, 20 and so on. Owen thinks that 40 is next. Joe thinks that 30 is next. Explain how both can be correct. So in this type of question, we consider when Owen is correct, when Joe is correct, and we compare and we explain. So to start off, we need to write down the sequence as we have in our question. So we've got 10, 20 and so on, and we take a note of both of these. Once we've done that, Owen thinks that 40 is next and Joe thinks that 30 is next. And we need to explain how both is correct. So we take a note of 40 and 30 in the appropriate boxes. Then we need to find the rule of both of these sequences independently. So Owen, as you can see for his sequence, we are doubling or multiplying by 2. And as you can see for Joe's sequence, we are adding 10. Once we've done that, we then need to compare and write down when they would both be correct and in what case. So Owen would be correct if we are doubling, and Joe would be correct if we are adding 10. And to explain, therefore, the correct answer would be either 40 and 30 is the correct answer, so it would be 30 or 40, and then we've answered how both the answers could both be correct. Here's a question for you to try. Pause the video here. Here's the solutions. Make sure that you self-assess your work. So for Noah's sequence, we are multiplying by 2. And for Ifra's sequence, we are subtracting by 7. Remember, we're subtracting, not adding, as we are getting further away from 0 and not closer to 0. So Noel is correct if you are doubling, and Ifra is correct if you're subtracting 7. And therefore, the correct answer is both negative 28 and negative 21. That's the end of R1, and we are now going to move on to R2. I can explain to an educated reader whether or not a number will be in the sequence. The sequence is as follows: 10, 20, 30 and so on. Will the number 52 be in the sequence? Explain if it will be or not. So for these type of questions, remember your correct, incorrect, compare and explain. So for the first part, we're going to start writing our sequence 10, 20, 30 and so on. And we're going to stop until we get to 60. We don't really need to go beyond that point, as we can see if 52 is in the sequence from just writing it up to 60. So we can see that it's an incorrect statement, for 52 will be in the sequence, as 52 does not appear in the sequence at all. And for the compare, the reason why is because 52 is not in the 10 times tables, and you can see that this sequence only consists of numbers in the 10 times tables. And finally, to explain, we're going to write down, therefore, 52 isn't in the sequence. And we're going to cross out is and keep the isn't. Luckily for this type of question, it was quite straightforward to double check if this number does or doesn't appear. Here's a question for you to do. Pause the video here. Here's the solutions. Make sure that you self-assess your work. As you can see, we are adding 2 each time in the sequence. And an incorrect statement is that 103 will be in the sequence. And the reason why is that the sequence only consists of even numbers and 103 is obviously odd. Therefore, the correct statement is that 103 isn't in the sequence, and we're going to delete the is and keep the isn't. Let's look at a different type of example. The sequence is as follows: 14, 17, 20, and so on. Will the number 32 be in the sequence? Explain if it will be or not. So remember the correct, incorrect, compare, and explain procedure. So as you can see here, this type of question is not very straightforward, and we do really need to work it out to double check. So let's write out the sequence 14, 17, 20, and let's continue the sequence until we pass 32 or hit 32. So as you can see, if we keep on adding 3, we can see that 32 does appear in the sequence. So therefore, we will not necessarily need an incorrect box. So what we can do here is we can cross out the incorrect box with red markings like this. Once we've done that, we can then now look at the comparing section. So as you can see, 32 does appear in the sequence. And the reason why is if you keep on adding 3, it will obviously appear in the sequence. Finally, to explain, we'll write down, therefore, 32 is in the sequence. And we're going to cross out isn't because it is in the sequence. Here's a question for you to do. Pause the video here. Here's the solutions. Make sure that you self-assess your work. So as you can see, you're being asked to find if 106 does appear in the sequence, and we can clearly see that it does appear in the sequence, so we don't need an incorrect box. 106 is in the sequence if you keep on adding 6. And finally, therefore, the correct answer is 106 is in the sequence, and we're going to cross out isn't and keep the is. That's the end of R2, and we've completed our R1 and R2 for today's lesson. Here's our beat the clock for today. So as you can see, we've got 2 questions to answer for today. So we've got R1 and an R2 type of question. So for the first question, here are the first 4 terms of a sequence: 9, 13, 17, 21. Hilda says that if you subtract the 7th and 11th number, you get 82. Is Hilda correct? What error did she make? Now remember, for these type of questions, for reasoning, you must use the CICE procedure. For the second question, here are the first 4 terms of a sequence: 9, 12, 15, 18, and 21. James says that 122 will appear in this sequence. Is James correct? Explain your answer. Again, you must use the CICE procedure. For both of these questions, give yourself 7 minutes and use a timer to time yourself as well. Pause the video here. Here's the solutions. Make sure that you self-assess your answer. So, as you can see, for the first question, Hilda added, the answer is 16. So what you should have done is that you should have subtracted the 7th term from the 11th term, and she should have got 16. For the second question, James is incorrect because 122 is not in the 3 times tables. Only numbers in the 3 times tables appear in the sequence, and you can clearly see the sequence contains numbers of 9, 12, 15, 18, and so on, which is numbers in the 3 times tables, and 122 is not in the 3 times tables. That is going to be the end of today's lesson.